So on our last meeting in Studies of the Medium's book, we started chapter 6, visual manifestations. So we will continue today on question 10. It's been quite some time, but basically a very quick summary of what seen so far. In visual manifestations so far, we see that we incarnate spirits, we can actually see spirits in some circumstances of our lives. One, routinely that we do so is during our sleep, with a partial disconnection of the perispirit from the physical body that rests and do what's necessary to recalibrate the physical body during the sleep. The spirit, with its perispirit, of course, can partially disengage and have experiences in the spiritual world, and there, of course, they'll see spirits. Of course, mediums with the visual faculty, so-called seeing mediums, they will see mediums, some very frequently, some more sporadically, but if they have the faculty, they will be able to see it. Some will see only during what we could call a mediumistic trance, and some, also very rare, have kind of a open window to the spiritual world very frequently, even outside of this mediumistic trance. And all of us who are not, extensive mediums, we're still mediums, as Kardec states to us. Not ostensive, but we still have an ability to interact with the spiritual world. And in very rare occasions, some of us may experience a visual manifestation. Most often would be with some kind of a trance. We're going to see later what kind of trance could liberate the spirit, perispirit partially to have a more ostensive interaction with the spiritual world. And all the questions regarding this topic over here will not consider sleep. And because that's a very natural process, it's not mediumistic, it's not trance, it's just a normal disengagement of the spirit to go into the spiritual world. We also covered that all spirits, regardless of its category, be a high order or low order spirit, can manifest visually. So one could say the most, I would not say the most, perhaps our inability to see them would be a problem, but not their ability to make themselves visible. The most high order spirits could manifest themselves. Perhaps you would not be able to interact with them because of our lower vibrations. But all spirits, it's the answer. Says the all spirit can for the most evolved to the least involved. What will be differentiated in terms of categories would be, of course, that the good spirits would manifest themselves for good causes, would manifest themselves to console, to instruct, to guide, to provide some kind of education, usually of a moral quality. And the ignorant ones, the less evolved ones, perhaps would manifest with a more evil, so to say, cause. They'll try to cause fear, to have fun from themselves, things they are having fun, causing fears, to some kind of retaliation, right? So they all can appear to us, but the intention, the objectives will be different, and that is in accordance with the category of the law or the level of moral evolution of its spirit. One of the questions that you always ask in the beginning of our studies is, well, if you want people to believe that spirit exists, it would be better if they could all see them. Would be a very definitive evidence of their existence if they show up and show themselves to us. And the Spirit says that that's not really the case. That the visual manifestation will not transform disbelievers into believers. That when we do not want to make use of reason and free ourselves from our atavism, for our prejudices, we always find justifications for those visualizations. We always attribute them to something else. It's going crazy, hallucinations, tricks, charlatanism, and all kinds of things, and could actually be counterproductive. Each one will believe and more than believe, understand our spiritual nature through a process, not through just making spirits visible, which could be actually more counterproductive. Those are the most important things that you had covered so far up to question 9. And now we start with question 10. Soraya, you do the honor for us? The very bottom of the page.
Yes, of course. Number 10. Is it reasonable to be frightened at the apparition of a spirit? Anyone who reflects on the matter will understand that a spirit, whatever it may appear as, is less dangerous than a living person. Moreover, spirits go everywhere, and you do not have to see them in order to know that they're at your side. A spirit who desires to harm someone can do so more surely without being seen. A spirit is not dangerous because it is a spirit, but because of the influence it could exert upon a person's thoughts, drawing him or her away from the good and pushing him or her toward evil. People who are afraid of the dark and of being alone rarely comprehend the cause of their fear. They would not know what to say if asked, what are they afraid of? But they should certainly be more afraid of meeting other human beings than spirits, because an evildoer is more dangerous while alive than after death. A lady whom we know saw an apparition one night in her room, and it was so well defined that she believed that there was actually someone present. Her first sensation was terror. However, upon assuring herself that there was no one else, she said to herself, "It looks like it was only a spirit, so I can sleep in peace."
So is it reasonable to be frightened of the apparition of a spirit? Well, in general, fears are not reasonable, period. In general, fears result from ignorance. When you know things, when you understand things, we will, when you are educated on the topic, we will exercise caution, but not fear. Someone who deals with reptiles, one who studies, let's say, snakes, when seeing a poisonous snake, we will understand what it is, we will not fear it, we will be prudent, we will be cautious, out of understanding, out of knowledge. But most of our fears actually we can't really explain. The example given over here by Kardec, I think, is brilliant. The people that are afraid of of being alone, they can't really explain that fear. Why am I afraid of the dark? Why do I fear being alone? even things more palpable like height. People are afraid of height. Oh no, I don't feel good. I feel dizzy. I this and that. But if you ask the why, the why is hard to come. The fear of seeing spirits falls in that category. It's ignorance. It's lack of understanding. Um, the most important thing to me is what is the spirit says over here. The spirit is not dangerous because it's a spirit, because we are spirits. The spirits covered with flesh, and there's spirits uncovered with flesh. But spirit may be dangerous because of the influence it can exert upon a person's thought, drawing him or her away from the good and pushing him or her towards evil. There is a fear that comes with knowledge, understanding of our spiritual nature, or understand of the kind of influences spirits can put us upon, like how can they be able to lead us towards one or another way, how they can influence in our thoughts. But at the same time, with the knowledge, we can learn how to prevent that from happening, how to make sure that our free will prevails over any other spirit, incarnate or discarnate. Is always a process of education. And it is interesting the example they use of this woman, and the question which you want to answer is, would you react in the same manner to see a spirit, I don't know, in your home, in your bedroom, and you're ready to go to bed, and in a way I described it here so clearly that you may even think that it's incarnate person, and then just relax and say, ah, it's just a spirit. Let me go back to bed and sleep. But that should be, and we're going to go see later on other things that we can do if that happens to us. But the question which you want to answer is, would you be so relaxed as this woman was in the example given by Kardec? Comments, questions?
Okay. Number 11. Can anyone who sees a spirit talk to it? Certainly. That is exactly what should be done in such a case. Ask the spirit who it is, what it wants, and what can be done for it. If it is unhappy and suffering, showing sympathy will bring relief. If it is a benevolent spirit, it may intend to offer good advice. In such cases, how will the spirit respond? Sometimes by articulating sounds as a living person would, but usually by transmitting its thoughts.
Okay. So as to complement my first comment, what else can we do besides not being afraid? Yes, can we talk to them? Not all you can, but we should. Um, if a spirit, if it's a more elevated spirit, we certainly will feel that elevation in a way. We'll feel the good energy, good vibration that a more evolved spirit will bring to us. And in this case, listen, because if they come to us, it's because they come to bring us good advice, to bring us some kind of assistance, and of course, show our gratitude. If it's a suffering spirit, words of encouragement, showing sympathy, empathy, will be extremely beneficial to those spirits. In general, we will hear those spirits via thought. It's not with the physical ears that we're going to hear, but could in some very rare occasions, then it will be a true physical phenomena, that they could use articulating sounds. So if it's articulating sounds, it gives the idea that sound will travel through air as the sound waves, and that will be received by our physical ears, and then there would be a physical phenomenon. And that will lead us to be certain that there is a medium of physical phenomena in the vicinity that was able to provide the proper elements for that phenomenon to take place, if not ourselves. But even when it's transmitted via thought, we incarnate, especially we who doesn't have much experience of the phenomena, will imagine, will think that we heard with our physical ears. Okay, but that is much more rare. The much more common, it says over here, usually, but it's by transmit its thoughts that will the spirit will communicate with us. Comments, questions? Not 12.
Okay. Do spirits who appear to have wings really have them, or are they only a symbolic appearance? Spirits do not have wings. They do not need them, since as spirits they can go anywhere, but they appear in this form in order to impress the person to whom they show themselves. Some appear wearing their normal clothing, others in drapery, and some with wings, as a characterization of the spiritual category they are representing.
So they're normal for the spirit, for the petty spirit, of course, is to have what we call so a human morphology, a human shape. You know, have head on top of a neck, the trunk, and the appendices, arms, legs, just the way we see the physical human body. The physical human body is made from and with the shape of the perispirit. So when we see spirits, you're not going to really seeing spirits, you're going to see that ahead, but we see the perispirit. The spirit itself, we don't see. But we see the perispirit or the spiritual body. The same way that when incarnate, we see the physical body. The idea of the wings as being made this creation of angels for a long time already. And the spirits may use that symbolism to categorize their quality, their moral quality. It is believed that the idea of the wings and the halo on the apparition of higher spirits is because of their luminosity. The brilliant light that emanates seems to glow in the back in a shape someone understood in a shape of wings, and the halo is the real luminosity that usually is present on the spirits that are what we would say in our physical body on top of our coronal chakra. And that vision, that shape, so to say, become a symbol of higher spirits. And of course, those who came out with that idea not understanding spiritism as we do now, call them angels, emissaries of God, and this and that. So higher spirits may use that symbol when they present themselves because it's already established in some cultures that being from God, you'd have wings and a halo. But the normal appearance of spirits is the human shape. Most will present themselves the way that would recognize them, the type of clothing that they wear while alive, or the kind of clothes that they are more comfortable with. Some would appear dressed in just cloth, as Emmanuel used to present. Some will present like dressed in light in different ways, but the morphology of the perispirit, ours is the human shape.
Mm.
Okay?
Okay. Number 13. Are the persons we see while dreaming always who they appear to be? They are almost always the same ones. Your spirit goes to meet them, or they come to meet you.
Okay. The important here, the word almost. Okay? So the individual, when the spirits present was representing a personality, someone, right? They are almost always who we think they are. So we're going to see that ahead why the word almost. But one thing that we're going to avoid is the always, right? If the spirit says always, would eliminate a lot of other probabilities. So it's almost always. When you see grandma and grandpa, the old teacher, and those have discounted quite a few years back, likely it's so they are presenting themselves. In very rare occasions, that would not be the case. And I think with that continue on 14, let's see.
Okay. Couldn't deceptive spirits take on the appearance of someone dear to us in order to mislead us? They take on fantastic appearances only in order to have fun at your expense, but there are matters that they are not allowed to play with.
So this is very significant that we have free will, but we are not free to do whatever we want.
Mm.
That's a very common argument that spirits have in our leadership meeting. So what about my free will? We'll talk a lot about free will, but now you are doing this and that. Because we confuse free will with lack of order. In the spiritual, there is order. So we can do a lot of things, or some things are not allowed to us. And one of the things will be able to deceive individuals with false appearances. They will create appearances with the potential over their minds and the know-how of many fantastic appearances, angels, devils, snakes, wolves, eagles. I remember having a conversation many years ago with a couple who came into the center, and they were spiritualists, not spiritists, and they said that the spiritual guide presents them as a white horse. And they always see the white horses, galloping away and communicate with them. When using the spirituals, perhaps was a little bit at the wrong time that I used, and I said, well, I understand that you see that. I'm not doubting it, but your guardian angel, even say your guardian angel, maybe representing themselves as a horse. But if your guardian angel is a spirit like us, it really has a human shape. They did not like that at all. They didn't like it. They completely disagreed. They left and never came back. Was the first and last time that they came to the center. Perhaps I misused the truth in that time. Was too much for them. But they clearly saw White Horse come to them. And perhaps was the guardian angel. I don't know. But if was the only way to make them hear good, necessary advice, perhaps that's what they use. So they can change the shape, the morphology, and according to the mind potentials, but everything has a limit. And someone come and pretend to be someone else is very unlikely to happen. Can it happen some occasion? Yes, it can. But that usually for the good, not to cause fear, not to have fun at our expenses. And that would be very high order spirits that can represent one another because the likelihood of similarity of the goals and objectives and state of mind, and that's reserved for a lot higher spirits. Comments, questions?
Yeah, and I think it's important here also that they are not allowed to play with also means the person they are trying to deceive, right? So depending on your state of mind and willingness, right, to enter into the same vibration as these spirits, then you are going to see what they present to you, right? So this couple, for instance, that you were saying, they were open and they believed that the horse was, their spiritual guide. So the spirit that was presenting as a horse was allowed to present as a horse because they wanted to see the horse. Now, if you are connected with your superior spirits or guardian angels, and someone wants to scare you just out of to play with, but you are not in the vibration level that they are, that's when they are not allowed to play with. It's just following the natural laws, right?
Yeah. So it is good to know, it's refreshing to know that there is limit, that we are not just a little puppet at the hands of spirits to play with us as they want. There is some order and discipline that has to be maintained in the spiritual world. And reminding me that higher spirits will have hierarchy always over low order spirits. That's also very comforting for us to know that we can be confident that the good prevails of evil, which does not stop us to have to go through the difficult trials that we all have to go through.
Okay. Continue.
Yes, please.
Okay, 15. Since thought is a kind of evocation, we can understand that it can induce a spirit to appear. But why is it that the persons whom we think about the most and whom we most ardently desire to see again almost never appear to us in our dreams, while we often see others who do not interest us in the least and whom we never think about? It is not always possible for spirits to show themselves visibly, even in dreams and in spite of your desire to see them. Causes apart from their will may prevent them. Besides, it is impossible. It is almost always a trial, which even your most ardent desire cannot avert. As for individuals who do not interest you, it is possible that they are thinking of you, even though you are not thinking of them. Moreover, you have no idea about relationships in the spirit world, where you might meet up with a multitude of close, old, and new acquaintances, whom you have no memory of at or while awake. When there is no means of verifying visions or apparitions, we can almost certainly treat them as being only hallucinations. However, when they are confirmed by the circumstances, we cannot attribute them to our imagination. Such are, for example, apparitions at the time of death, while asleep or awake, involving persons whom we have not been thinking about, and who by various signs have come to reveal the absolutely unexpected circumstances of their passing. In such instances, we have seen horses rear up and balk before apparitions that frighten their riders. Imagination may be something that humans are endowed with, but the same cannot be said for animals. Moreover, if the images we see while dreaming are always the result of our awakening concerns, that would not explain why we hardly ever dream of the matters that we have been thinking about the most.
Kardec really expanded his comment beyond the question itself, in my opinion. But it is quite interesting that quite often the ones that we thinking of and perhaps even invoking the apparition will never show up. And on the contrary, individuals that you never think about have no conscious affinity to wish the apparitions, they show up. So for the ones that I would say loved ones, the ones they would think of, the ones they would like to have an experience with in form of visual or any other form, we have to remember that they have their own things going in the spiritual world, they have their own lives in the spiritual world. So brothers apart from their will prevent them. So maybe they want to show up, but they have other obstacles that will not allow those that we think of to appear, to interact with us. Many possibilities. We can think of not being in the proper state of mind, not staying in the proper state of spiritual health, so to say. Perhaps doing a very different kind of work in some different areas that don't allow them that interact at that time. Many possibilities. And when it comes to the ones that we believe in, as I would say, that at least at conscious level, we don't have an affinity, we don't care about them. Perhaps that relationship is much deeper than what we know at the conscious level. Perhaps the ones that are showing themselves to us, we have a much deeper connection than we know of it at our conscious level. And they may be trying to interact with us. What Kardec's saying here about hallucinations is that if I'm always thinking of my grandma, and by the way, I never seen my grandma, never seen anybody actually, but not even in dreams, and I'm always thinking of my grandma, the work that she does. And she never shows up in dreams or in anything. But if every time I think of my grandma, she shows up to me, I could start believing it's hallucination because it's so almost predictable. It's always that she's there at my disposition. I say I want, and there she is. It's not really logical. It's not really reasonable. If it's not logical or reasonable, then we can consider the possibility of hallucinations, my imagination creating things. But when we have visual manifestations, apparitions of someone who never crosses our mind and we don't think of, and they come and they interact with us in a sense, in some cases that they actually know more and care for us much more than we'd ever imagine, it becomes more difficult to say it's a hallucination. Why would be a product of my thought, of my mind, of my imagination, if someone that I do not have any intention to interact with, right? It's less likely to be the case. And it is a favorable argument towards their existence and the possibility of their apparitions to us. And he used examples over here of documented cases of animals being frightened when the owner sees individuals that we can consider, they would consider to be spirits. In this case here, I am reading it as that the horse reacted to the reaction of the owners, not for the presence of the spirits itself. But I allow anyone to think either way in relationship to the horses. Comments, questions?
I have a comment. I think also on this realm of like, you have no idea about the relationship in the spiritual world. I think we tend to want to connect with spirits who have more affinity, and that's usually the connection that we think we need to make. A lot of the times, those relationships probably that don't feel too good, or it's not our first thought, are the relationships we need to mend or continue working while on the spiritual world. So I think a lot of those connections, when we have more freedom in the sleep state, for instance, are driven by the fact we still have work to do with spirits that we might not feel that we want to see it all the time. Actually, those are the spirits we probably need more time with for whatever reason. So I think the opportunity to continue doing that work when you're like sleeping, it's probably one of the reasons that you end up seeing more or feeling like you're seeing more of the spirits that you don't necessarily think about.
Yeah, I agree. I think we all may have relationships that we rather not touch right now for our personal reasons, because it's difficult for us, or just because we don't care at all about it. But the relationships that are very significant for us to our progress, and perhaps for that spirit trying to manifest themselves to us as well. So the fact is that there is a cause, but more important than the cause, there is an objective. Now there is a why, but more important, there is a what for. So if we experience visual manifestation with spirits that apparently, and I keep saying the word apparently, we don't care much about them, we should pay good attention to that. Because, if I use the example of my grandmother, I was always thinking of her, I always think the work that she does and things like that. I also have a grandpa in the spiritual world, and never read. Just come to my mind now, never think of my grandpa. And he was a very nice dude also. I mean, he was very good for me. I liked him very much also. But because my grandma was involved with spiritualism, worked with Chico Xavier, and she's always coming to my mind very often. But I may have more issues to deal with my grandpa than with my grandma. Perhaps it'd be more important for me or for him or for both of us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, but I think that your point is very well taken, is that there is a what for. There is there is not beyond the reason, there is more important an objective, something for us to gain out of those things happening. Even if it's not really pleasant, even if it's something that I'd rather not touch right now, if you have an opportunity, it's because you're ready to do so, and you better face it now.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Number 16. Why do certain visions happen more frequently during illness? They happen just as frequently in the state of perfect health, but during illness, the material ties loosen and the weakness of the body allows more freedom to the spirit, which then more easily communicates with other spirits.
Okay. So, I said that personally, I think that if we see spirits, we have to be in a very minimal possible state of trance to be able to expanding our perispirit a little farther away from the physical body to have that possibility of interact more intensively with the spiritual world, and in this case, seeing spirits. It may be even unperceivable to us that we are in that state of a minimum necessary trance, and by transit, we will define as an altered state of consciousness. Okay? And the trance may be of different natures. It may be a mediumistic trance, common, right? When we are in a trance and when we have a psychography or psychophony or seeing a spirit, we are in altered state of consciousness and a mediumistic trance. You may be in that altered state of consciousness and be conscious of what's happening. You may be a conscious medium. So it may happen anytime. You don't have to be ill. But very often when we are ill, we may be on a very light state of trance. And by that I mean a little expansion of the perispirit to the fragility of the ties of the body, secondary, the ties of the body to the perispirit, secondary to the illness. We know fever places us in an altered state of consciousness. We know individuals, I mean, everyone who lived long enough when interacting with individuals having not seizures, fevers, that they may have spoke things that we may call hallucinations. Could some of those episodes not be real hallucinations, but be in this state of expansion that actually see spirits, interact with spirit? So some medications can cause chemical, altered state of consciousness, and they can go into the spiritual world. Some quite dangerous, going into the spiritual world out of drug abuse may become a very dangerous thing for us. I'm not going into details here right now. But there are many other ways that we can reach any state of trance, and illness is one of them. That's why being more registered individual having those visual manifestations when they were not health, when they're sick, and we know for sure, well documented, fever is one of the things that place us in that state of trance. And just I'm thinking over here, just being you perhaps give us a opportunity, a time frame for us to see ourselves a little more beyond the physical. We have to reflect a little bit more about ourselves, our possibility of death, since you are ill, and then what comes after that, what's good. So you reflect a little bit more of our spirituality in a state of illnesses that perhaps we would do being healthy and too busy trying to making a living instead of trying to live. Comments?
Okay.
17, I think. Yes.
17. Spontaneous apparitions seem to occur more often in certain countries. Are the members of some cultures more gifted than others at receiving these manifestations? Have you made a historical registration of every apparition? Apparitions, noises, and all other manifestations occur equally all over the world, but they display their own particular characteristics according to the cultures among which they occur. For example, among those where writing is not very widespread, there are no writing mediums. Among others, they abound. Also, among the former, manifestations involving noises and movements of objects are more frequent than intelligent communications, which are less appreciated and sought after.
So, could members of some cultures be more gifted than others at receiving those manifestations? That would be a derogation of the divine laws of a God that we know that is just and treat us all equal, right? If God provided a gift, a specific gift for one group and deny the group of that same gift, or it doesn't go with the understanding that we have of God and treating us as equal, right? Created simple and ignorant. But we know that as a spirit, incarnate and discarnate, we tend to move towards those who are more like us, who think more like of us, who believes in things that we believe, that we have a tendency to go into the direction where we feel more comfortable because we have that commonality of beliefs, of understanding of. So perhaps because of that reason, in areas where individuals believe, understand more than believe, our spiritual nature and the possibility of communicability of the two realms of our existence, those events would be more registered. There would be no shame, there would be no fear to say, oh, I had a spiritual visual manifestation last night. I saw this, I saw that, I heard it, I heard that, with much more easiness than if it happens in areas where this kind of understanding, this kind of belief is not common, and even worse, where this kind of experiences are seen as something negative, as something undesirable, as something that is associated with bad things like the evil, the devil, and we know those cases. So in areas like that, I would be very quiet if I had a spiritual experience. I would not want to be labeled as one with the devil, as would not be labeled as one who is associated with evil things. In some cases, it could be even dangerous, even to these days. And then the person could be burned for it, or even being accused unjustly, and still being burned for it. But the only way that you could make any sense of this statement, that spontaneous manifestations seems to occur more often in certain countries, would be by doing a very serious studies in all the countries and get a statistic values, and then you could document and say, yeah, it seems like it happens more here, less here. We don't have that. So we don't have that studies done. So the statement's not valid for individuals with reasonable scientific kind of state of mind, right? And that's why the Spirit says, have you made a historical registration in every apparition? Is there any studies for you to say that? No, we don't. And the point is, if we do, would those who have those experience those moments tell the truth, would come out and say, yes, I have this and that? Who would be more likely, in which regions of the planet individuals would be more comfortable telling of their experiences, and which areas individuals would be more likely to hide those experiences? But the spirits are telling here, no, it happens everywhere equally, because that's what we would expect from a God. I don't expect a God to provide gifts for one and deny others. And also there is the culture of the environment. And this culture, as I spoke with, but there is also the issue of writing. It's very hard to imagine having writing mediums where inability to write is spread out. Where ignorance for writing and reading is abundant, we not expect to see much writing mediums. One may argue, but maybe that medium does not know how to write in this existence, but he knows or she knows how to write from previous existence. Very possible then that individuals who are not able to write in this incarnation could write a message. And that is demonstrated in the Spirited Review, or some case of individuals who have given written communication, but then themselves don't know how to write and read. But what would be the purpose of that happening in an area where those around that individual does not know how to write and read also? Why provide a written message amongst individuals who cannot know how to write, how to read, right? A verbal, like cacophony, would be a lot more useful than those would receive. Can only provide letters when individuals were able to read that letter. Why would you write a letter and send someone who cannot read? It would be wiser to send a verbal audio message than a written one. So there is many factors that would show that some spiritual phenomena, in this case, particular apparitions, would be more registered in other areas than others, but we cannot say that it's the demographic, it's more spread out equally because of all those cultural aspects of our incarnated life. Comments?
And we can also think a very good example is Dr. Stevenson's book on reincarnation, right? 20 cases suggestive of reincarnation. Why he went to Asia, to people that there are people that are there. They are much more comfortable with the concept of reincarnation. When children mention reincarnation, mention other lives, they pay attention and they take it seriously. In the rest of the world, it happens in the same way. Children all over the world, but parents in the other places mostly prevent their children from expanding on it, believe that it's just imagination. They don't take it seriously. So that's why Dr. Stevenson focused on the Eastern civilizations and cultures to go deeper into the study of his, the book is 20 suggestive cases, but he's researched more than 3,000 cases. And most of them, the vast majority of them were in Asia. same thing, right? Because people there are more open to it.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, those who choose out of a prejudice to disregard his works point that as one of the causes to disregard his works, because he went to the places where people believe in reincarnation. So it's a catch-22 in his case. But his work with registered cases of presumed, and he used presumed reincarnations. You have to go where cases have been reported. You can't go where there is nothing's being reported.
Okay, number 18.
Yep.
Okay. Why do apparitions occur more at night? Mightn't this show that they are the effect of silence and darkness upon one's imagination? For the same reason you see the stars at night and not in full daylight. Intense lighting can eclipse a delicate apparition. Nevertheless, it is wrong to suppose that night has something special about it in this regard. Question those who have seen apparitions, and you will find that most have actually occurred during the day. The phenomena of apparitions are much more frequent and common than one might think, but many persons do not reveal them either because they fear being ridiculed or because they attribute them to illusion. If they seem to occur more abundantly among certain cultures, it is because such cultures have more carefully preserved their correct or erroneous traditions, which are almost always exaggerated by a fascination for the extraordinary in areas that are more or less disposed to them. Furthermore, credulity sees supernatural effects in the most ordinary phenomenon, the silence of solicitude, the steep slope of ravens, the rustle of trees, the roar of storms, the echo from mountains, the fantastic shapes of clouds, shadows, and mirages. Anything can lead itself to deluding simple and naively imaginative people who recount in good faith what they've seen or believe they have seen. However, alongside fiction, there is reality, and a serious study of Spiritism can set people free from the foolish accessories of superstition.
Our daily lives are busy. We don't have the opportunity to rest our head in a pillow and just allow ourselves to expand a little bit to be able to have those spiritual experiences. So again, here personally, I think that is more likely to happen at the moment that we are at rest, that the body is at rest, that we can think of other things besides what you're going to eat, how I'm going to pay that bill, I'm going to be late for the train, and all kinds of things that limits our ability to think of us as a spirit and of our spirituality. So personally, I think because of our lifestyle and everything else, it's more likely that it would happen at the times that we are at rest of mind, rest of body, and usually that for most people is at night. Another fact that we could consider over here is that we know that white light limits the ability of spirits to interact with us. That's why during our spiritual treatment, we dim the lights in the spiritual center. We try not to use white light. And we are bombarded with white light during the day. So that's perhaps another reason that if not more cases happens, at least we acknowledge those things happening more at night. And then Kardec goes over here and says exactly what we already covered in the previous questions, that we reject things that our prejudice makes us reject, that our society does not accept, that the nuclear, social nuclear we live completely reject those things, so you have a tendency to reject itself. So if apparitions happens, we will deny that it is what it is, and you attribute it to other things, including our imagination. Yeah, we are more likely to expand our mind and allow ourselves to imagine things when the body is at rest, when we are at rest, and when we are able to rest our heads in a pillows. Yeah, it's more likely to happen. But the very last sentence of it, I think, is the most important. Alongside fiction, there is reality. And a serious story of spiritism can set people free from the foolish accessories of superstition. So now the thing that in spiritism we are educated, suggest to do is rule out all possibilities before we take it. That is spiritual experience as an spiritual experience. Rule out everything else. Rock with the noise but coming from someone else. It could be product of my imagination. When all of that are ruled out, then we will not deny the reality. Aware of the possibility of the interaction of the spiritual world. Once I rule out all the physical causes, then I'm totally comfortable with the spiritual cause. So Kardec warning here is that there is this the likelihood of us go too far to the right and too far to the left, to be radical in a way or in the other way. One denying everything, and the other way is going to deep superstition and things and and think that everything now is the spiritual world. Everything is now is apparition. I think of my grandma, and my grandma's in my bedroom with whom sitting with me having a little tea. Right? Spiritual suggests us reason. Stay in the middle, not too far to the right, not too far to the left, not being superstitious and not being radical materialist. Understand our spiritual nature, understand the communicability of the two realms of existence, and using knowledge, understanding, to see reality as reality, period. Okay?
Okay. Number 19. Does the seeing of spirits occur in the normal state or only during ecstasy? It can occur under perfectly normal conditions. However, those who see them are almost always in a special state which approaches ecstasy and which gives them a kind of second sight.
So in the spiritual book, when you see ecstasy, their ecstasy is explained as a very high altered state of consciousness towards our highest level of elevation possible, in which we are able to have experiences that is of pleasure, of happiness that is undescribable in verbal communication. I don't think here the word is Kardec put the words in that terms. I think here, in my understand, the word ecstasy are more in the state of trance, not this highest possible trance that leads us to that state of a superb interaction with the spiritual world that brings us to a state of happiness, state of peace that is just no words for it. That's how it's the word access is explained in the spiritual book. Here I'm reading more as a trance, because I can't imagine that Kardec would be thinking that we need to be in that such a highest possible state that very few individuals will actually reach in one reincarnation, but everybody could experience that, or each one will experience that at our own potential, so to say, right? So I'm taking, and I'm saying this because many of us have studied spiritual book already, have seen this word in spiritual book already, and may imagine that Kardec is saying that we need to be in that state of awe, absolutely undescribable happiness for that to happen. And I'm reading the word ecstasy more as a trance and altered state of consciousness. And the answer is, yeah, it can occur under perfect normal conditions. However, those who see them are almost always in a special state that which approaches ecstasy. So it's a trance that may approach this, perhaps here, a very high altered state of consciousness. It's very important to understand that almost always it can happen without a trance, but it's extremely, extremely rare, because almost always we are in our altered state. And again, we need to consider that in order for us to liberate ourselves from this physical realm, we need to be in a little bit altered to be able to expand our perispirit to interact with the physical world. So no, we don't need to be in a state of ecstasy. Ecstasy, by definition, is extremely rare. But we need to be in an altered state. As minimum, not even know that we are in that state of altered state of consciousness. But in extremely, extremely, extremely cases, it may happen without being in any kind of trance. So it's an answer from the spirits that tells us that everything is possible, basically. But in all circumstances, in general, you'll accept that those manifestations will happen when we are in some kind of trance. And again, some kind of trance. There's many different ways of reach an altered state of consciousness. As we saw before, Eunice is one of them. Comments, question?
Okay. Number 20. Do those who see spirits do so with their eyes? They think they do, but in reality, it is their soul that sees them. This is proven by the fact that they can still see them with their eyes closed.
Yeah, I think this is very important also. We are not talking about here a specific physical manifestation. One of the possibilities, right? And if it's not a physical manifestations, we are not going to see with the physical eyes. If you don't see with the physical eyes, we say, so to say, with the soul, with the eyes of the soul. And we understand that the perispirit does not require any specific sensory organ, but the spirit sees with the whole perispirit, hears with the whole perispirit. It's very hard to understand. I do not understand. Okay, but the sensation and an exchange of sensations does not require physical organs. Of course not, because there is no physicality. There is materiality, but not physicality in the spiritual world. So, because we are so conditioned that we see with our eyes, if we see spiritual, you imagine that we see with our physical eyes. If you hear, we imagine that you hear with our physical ears. That will happen if it is a physical phenomenon. If not, we are seeing and hearing with our soul, so to say. And this is very important. It seems nonchalant, but it's very important to understand that. Comments? Questions? Was it go?
No.
Yeah. Does anybody have a question? No, okay.
Okay.
Wondering?
Okay. How can a spirit render itself visible? The principle is the same as for all other manifestations. It resides in the properties of the perispirit, which can undergo as many modifications as the spirit sees fit.
Okay, so we just studied that in depth already. There is 3 components usually, right, for the communication take place. There is the spirit energies plus the receiver. What could I say? The receiver or the incarnate energy, okay, plus a third element. This third element, we know there is an ectoplasm and a physical phenomenon, and we don't know exactly what this third element it is, but it is a, let's say, a binder that allows that approximation, interaction of the two perispirits, that allows that interaction, being visual, being audio, being whatever, even tactile in some cases. But that's how the spirits will be able to make themselves visible using their own energies plus the energies from the receiver, the incarnate, the medium, whatever we want to use over here. And there is a third element, a substance that allows that phenomena to happen. Okay?
Okay.
True?
22. Can a spirit per se make itself visible, or can it only do so with the aid of the perispirit? In your material state, spirits can only manifest themselves with the aid of their semi-material envelope, which is the intermediary through which they act upon your
Sorry.
They act upon your senses. Under the envelope, they can appear in human form or in any other, whether in dreams or in the awakening state, whether in the full light or in darkness.
So I think we are comfortable, you know this very well already. We don't see spirit, we see the perispirit of the spirit. We don't see incarnate, we see the physical bodies, we don't see the spirit. Discarnate, we see the perispirit or spiritual body, we don't see the spirit. The perispirit is malleable in according to the know-how and the mind and somewhat the permission, right? And to change its morphology. But in general, it will carry a human shape, a human form. But when you see, you don't see the spirit, you see the perispirit. In whatever shape it presents itself, most often in the human form. And most often in the human form with appearance of the very last incarnation, most often.
I just have a question. The beginning of the answer, he says, in your mature state. I think it's fair to maybe just a word of choice, word choice here, but it is in any state, right? Because spirits, when they see themselves, even the spiritual world, they're seeing the paraspirit.
Even in the spiritual world, we will see the perispirit. Make a difference in the material world, not in the physical world, because the perispirit is also matter.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
The perispirit is also matter. So there is matter in the spiritual world, but it's not as dense. I'm not gonna use the word dense over here because I have any other word to use as in the physical world. It gives the impression over here that there might be a way of the spirit to manifest itself to our senses without the perispirit in some words, not ours.
Right.
But my my knowledge and reading so far is that the spirit requires the perispirit to manifest itself to interact with anything. It requires a perispirit, maybe so spiritualized or very high order spirit for the Christs, but there would still be some kind of perispirit that it's far from us to even try to understand at this point. Do you have any opinion on that as well?
No. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but that's a very good point because I was thinking of that also in our material world, but what are the words? So it gives an idea that are other words that it's way beyond our even try to understand it yet.
Yeah, because then it would be even foolish to think like, okay, there's the paraspirit as we know, but in our material world, that's what we're using. And then might be another world where there's another element or even more subtle that they call something else, which is beyond even trying to comprehend. It was just that specific word choice that got me. So thank you.
Yeah, but also in trying to remember that spiritual perispirit is also material, right? It's
Right.
also some kind of matter.
Yeah, thank you.
You can do the last one here now. What is it? I lost. Is that 23, the next one?
Yes, 23.
Okay,
Could,
thanks.
could we say that it is through a condensation of the spirit's fluid that the spirit makes itself visible? Condensation is not the right word. It only serves to make a comparison that can help you understand the phenomena, while in reality, there is no actual condensation. The combining of fluids produces a special condition in the perispirit, which has no analogy for you, but which renders the spirit visible nonetheless.
Okay. So that's one of the issue, and that I always imagine the difficulty, how hard it is for spirits to explain things to us, that we don't have means to create an analogy, a comparison, or words to express it. You know, the example that I always use is the fish that spend a weekend on Times Square and see everything that is in Times Square and go back to the depth of the ocean and have to explain to the other fish what did it see. You will have a hard time explaining everything it sees in Times Square because there will be lack of words. It will be lack of comparisons to make an analogy, to make a metaphor. You know, we see the buildings and if we say compare the buildings as coral reefs, and but there will be other things that it will be very hard. We see the lights of the cars and see the bioluminosity of some fishes, but some things will be very hard to explain. And I just keep imagine how hard it is to spirits to explain things to us that you don't have that they don't have means to make comparisons. And of course, we learn through comparisons most often, right? You learn from metaphors most often. Jesus taught us through metaphors. And we borrow words of our physical sciences and introduce into spiritualist war studies because we don't have any other words. We don't have anything else to create. So use word condensation. Okay. Could we say that it is through condensation of the perispirit's fluid that the spirits make itself visible? And the spirit of God said, well, if that's the best analogy that we can make, we take it, but it's not. Okay, we don't have a word, but we know that it's somehow a transformation, temporary transformation of the perispirit using those three elements that you already said, right? The spirit energy, the receiver or the medium's energy, plus this third element that it's physical phenomenon going to be the ectoplasm, but if it's not physical, it's just something else that is there of the world. If they don't mention to us, it's because there is no way that they can mention to us. There's no words for it. And we borrow many words from our physical sciences and you try to apply into the spiritual studies for lack of any other words. But we have to use those words with caution, knowing that it's the best that we have to use right now. So condensation is not the right word, but it's what we have right now. We use many words, magnetism, many words that you borrow from. Density. Is the word really density when you're dealing with um, characteristics of the perispirit? Well, give him a better one and I use a better one. Unfortunately, I don't have one, and I hope that everyone have an understanding that what I mean by density, that not maybe the exactly better word, but you don't have. Our verbal communication is way too limited for spiritual works, and we have to be smart enough to use what we have and understand that you should not use and apply the word exact as it means in our physical sciences and our chemistry, and with condensation is one thing, nothing that is the chemical condensation that happens with the perispirit. Okay, comments, questions?
Elmo, hi, Elmo. Yes,
Right.
this is Carol. General question, what about our guardian angels? Do they stay close but do not necessarily manifest or create, let's say, a phenomenon for us?
They stay close and they manifest all the time. Otherwise, there will be no reason to have them. If they could not interact with us to provide them the guidance, the inspiration, why have them? So they do manifest themselves, but they manifest themselves via thought. They manifest themselves with their inspiration and guidance, sometimes helping us to make decisions as simple as going right or left, right? Quite often. Not necessarily. A more tangible, a more palpable, so to say, manifestation such as visual or auditive, you don't hear them, or you hear them with our souls. But in terms of having a more ostensive manifestation, usually no, usually they don't.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I wasn't sure though, but thank you for clarifying. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you.
No, thanks for your question. Is any more questions, any comment? Next week we continue with 24. Next month, I'm sorry. You have any?
Next week is Q&A.
Yeah, next week's Q&A. Okay, I'll final prayer, please, Carol.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Elmo, for hosting. Thank you, John. And thank you, Sarita, for reading for us and everyone who is participating with us today. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together again for our studies of the Medium's book, Chapter 6, Visual Manifestations. As we learn about our spiritual nature, we become more educated and have less fear about spirits. If they do appear to us, we can ask what a spirit needs, wants, or whether it is suffering and needs relief. Spirits can make sounds, but usually a spirit communicates by transmitting thoughts or may appear in a physical human form via the perispirit, which is our spiritual body, and this is the luminous and malleable aspect. Manifestations and apparitions occur worldwide and may be displayed uniquely among cultures. Apparitions can occur both day and night, or at times when there are less distractions. Also, when we are relaxed, resting, or in an altered state of trance, we are more likely to be open to receive phenomena. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, the workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.